Brandon Brands.
Hey everyone, this week we'll be talking about how to generate discovery for your brand community. Check it out.
In a world where advertising is ignored, business is exposed, and the only constant is change, how do you build a brand that matters? Welcome to Brands on Brands on Brands, a home for those who think different and push their boundaries. This is where branding that matters lives. Now, here's your host, Brandon Birkmeyer.
Hey, what's up? Welcome to Brands on Brands on Brands, episode 107. Today we're talking about brand discovery. Thank you for tuning in. I am Brandon Birkmeyer, your personal branding coach, and I believe that building a brand that matters is the only way for a business to thrive tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in to our Top 100 Marketing Podcast. We are very proud of that. And this is where entrepreneurs and marketing thought leaders come together to enlighten, to educate, and to inspire entrepreneurs across the globe to start building better brands. This show launched in May of 2019, hitting the new and noteworthy iTunes charts for business and marketing for 7 straight weeks. And we've been blessed to feature the world's leading minds in marketing and entrepreneurship, including keynote speakers, authors, entrepreneurs, top podcasters in the marketing and branding space. And we're going to keep on doing that this year in 2020. Who am I, Brandon? I am a marketing consultant and brand strategist with over 18 years experience working for Fortune 100 brands such as Coca-Cola, Apple, Walmart, Wells Fargo, to name a few. And if you're interested in working with me and you have issues with your business, with your personal brand, you want to know how to grow, let's take time to get on the phone with each other and just talk about your business. And I'm doing discovery calls, 15 minutes for free. Just go to brandonbrands.com/apply and we will talk about your business. All right, guys. Well, as I hinted to, today's show, for those of you that were paying attention, is about brand discovery. This is episode 107. And this is a big topic for me because a lot of people, I think, mix this up. And it's such a huge part of building a brand is getting people to find it, and not just find your products and services, but actually get to know you and your business and the things that you stand for. So this is all part of my series on branding for you, your brand, your personal brand. And what I've talked about is there's 3 pieces to the personal branding framework. It's develop your message, find your voice, build a community, and make an impact. So part of this building a community is a huge piece of your personal brand. So the components of a community that I wanted to talk about are authority, discovery, and list building. And discovery is what today's about. This is our deep dive on how to do that, how to get found, how to find your people, bring them together, and get an audience around your brand. And there's a lot of ways this can go, but what I want to structure this as is there's a few important things that are going to drive real growth of actual customers in your business, not just an audience, not just followers or fans, but actual customers. Now, the 3 things that I think you can almost think of them as steps. The first is you need to figure out the right way to introduce yourself. And that might sound pretty basic, but I don't know how many people I've met still do not know how to tell you what it is that they stand for, what it is they do, why it should be important to you. So figuring out how you say what it is that you do, what you're about, why you do it, and how to position yourself in your market is huge. It's most of the game is figuring that out because people need to know right away if you are for them or if you're not for them. And knowing how to, in those first few moments, introduce yourself is key because a lot of people most people, I should say, will make the decision on whether they like you or not right in their first few minutes of a conversation. So you being able to build that connection without being sleazy, without selling, without trying to sound very marketing-y, it's not a word, but you know what I'm saying, is important. You have to be able to be authentic and develop relationships. Part of that is saying, what are the things about you that they need to know that's going to help you and them develop a relationship? And for some of you, that's going to be in person, for somebody that's going to be online, for somebody that's going to be, via a direct message or a Facebook group or some kind of social interaction. And knowing what to do in all of those situations is important because it will vary based on the context of these conversations and where they are and how they're being had will vary. Some people, it'll be a very quick introduction that's not very high pressure. Others, you might have to have a more in-depth conversation and know what to say about yourself at a longer pace. Some of it will have to be in writing that's cold. Some of it will be warm introductions. And for some people, you just need to know how to tell them, people you already know, how to tell them to introduce you to their friends or who to tell them to connect you with other than a customer that would be a good connection for you. And all of this is critical in generating discovery for your community, because if people don't know how to find you, why they should be a part of your community, why they should know you, then they have no reason to take the next step and seek you out and want to join something that you've created. So that introduction is critical, and figuring out what it is that you say. And you can go back to my conversation on positioning your brand, which is part of your message in the episode 99 of the podcast. I talk about positioning and how to know what you're about and who you serve and how to be great. Once you figure all that out and you know your message, you do have to figure out then how to take that message you have and use it in an introduction, because the first time you meet someone is different than your marketing messaging. It's different than the things you put on your website. You need to know what to say that can be used in different situations. One of the good pieces of advice I got was in some conversations, you might want to be a little bit intriguing. Someone might ask you, what it is you do, and you might want to, instead of telling them everything, you might want to set it up in a way that probes them to ask more questions. Create some curiosity. But that doesn't work in every situation, but it might work in some where they're like, oh, well, what does that mean? Or how do you do that? Those are great questions. But I realize even that advice, you can't use everywhere. Sometimes people are like, yeah, no, I get that. And I get that you're trying to be coy and cute, but really just tell me at least what industry you're in or what you do. So you got to be able to figure out who you need to get to the point with versus other people who you need to kind of tease. And is it crowded? Is it one-on-one? What are the situations? And figure out in each of those, design them or look back in your past and say, okay, how could I have done this better if this situation happens again? Figure out how are you going to introduce yourself and have a plan for it. Have a little dialogue or an approach that you're not kind of winging it from the hip every time. Now, once you get past the introducing yourself, which I think is 50% of the battle in terms of generating discovery for your community, the other things you need to do, and I'll list the three out. So for discovery, there's three pieces. Introduce yourself. The second is network and networking, and I'll talk to you about that. The third is promotion, and actually, how do you promote your brand actively? So we talked about introducing yourself. So the next thing is network and networking. So this is really building relationships, right? And obviously introducing yourself is part of that. But what does networking mean to me is really, how do you get around the people that you want to be a part of your community? It's on you to actively go to where those people are. And I think that's what people miss. If you want to generate discovery for your community, you actually need to go to where your audience is. They're not all going to find you and come to you because you ran an ad. You actually do need to go to where they already are and interact with them. And what it might take is multiple interactions for people to become curious about you and want to investigate and see if what you have is something that they want, and if your community is something that is for them. And you may not even introduce your community when you first meet someone, but you do need to be active. So if you have a group of customers and you know that they're going to a certain event or they're on a certain Facebook group, it's your job to say, okay, I'm going to make a plan to go to this event or that Facebook group and actively just put myself out there in a place to meet more people without any plans for how to conquer them and make them your customers. How do you actually just put yourself in a situation where you're meeting more and more of those people? And the reason I say it like that is because when you just open yourself up to meeting as many of them as possible and you know who they are and what they do, you then, when you're there and it's actually happening, you're open to just meeting anybody. And when you meet those people, either the people you meet, you're going to find out of everyone you meet, some of them you will really connect with. You'll feel that there's just a more natural connection that's happening, and you'll lean into those people. And find more ways to connect with them while you're there and to get their information in the follow-up, or to find a couple people that can be your wingman and you work together to meet even more people throughout the events. You have to find the people that you connect with that together you can continue to build more introductions with. And what it's going to take is you putting yourself in those situations where your people are. And if even before that, while you find these events that you want to be at, you can do some pre-work and saying, okay, well, I know who might be at the event. Maybe that event has some conversation set up around it, like some free chat, Twitter hashtags, event, Facebook groups, whatever it is. Or maybe they have some speakers. You can reach out to these people via DM or go into these groups and start having conversation in the chats to start building rapport and put yourself out there saying, I'm happy to meet some people if anyone wants to shake hands and say hello. When you do that, when you put yourself out there early, then when you show up, the people that were looking for someone to meet that were also like you, maybe they are hoping for someone that's not a stranger and you're the closest thing to that. You've put yourself in a situation to meet more people. So the point of all this is you need to be active in finding the places where your people are and going to them. And there's easy places to do that online, but I'd say do it in person as well and find that place to do that. And then when you have met those people, make sure you follow up and you're finding more ways to connect with them. Find out the other things that they're going to, the next conferences they're attending, find out what their social channels are, ask them what communities they're a part of, where they spend their time. And then you can start spending your time in those same places with those same people and become part of their community. And the more human touches you get along the way, the more chances you have of this person becoming someone that wants to join your community, someone who feels like they have experiences with you. And I learned this when I was at an event. I was wrapping my head around this idea of how to be better at networking. And one of the speakers who's just got these amazing relationships talked about how it wasn't the first time they met this person that they were also on stage with that they became friends. It was like the 10th time that they met each other a couple times and then they kept running into each other. And every encounter was like another touch. And, by the 10th or 11th or 15th touch, it was like, oh, we should hang out. Like we like each other. We're friends. And the funnier part was he was like, and I will never ask something for him, but every time I meet him, I think of a new way that I'm like, oh, you know what? Now that I know him even better, I actually think I might know something that might help him, whether it's a tool, a resource, or a connection. Because you know someone better and better, it's easier for you to think of ways to help them. Or you're listening. They're talking about the things that they're doing and they mention something that's a struggle. And then you might have something that could help along the way. And I think that this is where people struggle is they're like, well, I have to figure out from the first moment I meet someone how I can add value to them. And I don't think that's the case. I think if you can, great. But if it means that really it's just staying in contact and making more touches with them and getting to know them along the way so that later you can figure out, like along the way, when something more organically pops up, how you can help them, do it without any incentive for, them helping you. You just find ways to be helpful to other people. And it's amazing. I mean, it's been said, I think it's Zig Ziglar's like, you can get whatever you want in life by helping other people get what they want. And this is true, but you're not going to figure that out in the first contact all the time. A lot of the times it just takes more and more touches, and you've got to make yourself someone who can be opportunistic in terms of finding where you can get more and more interactions with these people that feel like they're the right people in your group for your community. So get out there and find as many touches as possible. And the other thing that speaker said was, not only was it the 10th or 15th time that finally we became friends and I found some ways to help, but really my goal is I want to have like 100 more encounters and interactions with this person before I ever need something, because by that point, it's going to be obvious that we're going to be working to help each other. So his goal is just to find as many ways to interact and find a new way to connect with people that are the right people. So that's the network side of this. Okay. Again, we're trying to generate discovery for our community, which is building our personal brand. The first step was find a good introduction and way to introduce yourself. The second is your networking and your network and putting yourself into the places where the people can find you. Third piece to this is about promotion. It is how do you actively tell people about what you're doing and get attention in a way that you can scale, right? Because these first two things, you have to do things that don't scale. Those first two things are those kinds of things that you have to get out there and build. But when you want to level this up, the things I think about are promotion. And the way I think about it is after people find you, they need a place to go look for more about you. And that is your organic media, the things that you've created, your platforms, which you can go back to episode 101 and listen to about platforms. But it's your content that you create, the books you write, the presentations you've done, the places you've been featured, and the organic posts you do on social media. All of that tells a story of who you are. So that organic content creation is one way to promote yourself, because it over time is slowly building an audience. If you're using the right hashtags and you're placing it in the right places, there is some organic reach to that. So part one of promote is the organic, but the other two places are really the only two places you can scale quickly and get eyeballs quickly and be in front of as many people as possible quickly is through two things: advertising and PR, period. It's the tried and true methods. It's what's been around forever. It's advertising and PR, because in the organic space, you can chase the trends and try to be on the fastest growing social media tools and, get discovered and go viral. But that's not a strategy. That's something you can try and see if it works, but it's not something you can count on, right? Advertising and PR, definitely. So let's talk about that. In terms of generating discovery for your community, I'm not saying you get out there and you run ads for your group, for your community, or that you get out there and you go on a press tour talking about your community. That's not what I'm talking about. You need to very strategically think about how do you take an approach that brings people into your world, right? So let's talk about PR first. So from a PR perspective, what this is once you know your message and you have something that you want to share with people, you have to get out there and actively, physically present it to as many people as possible on their platforms, wherever they may be. So that means you going to conferences and speaking, or just networking and telling people your story. That means you going into Facebook groups and helping people and networking with the influencers that lead them and telling your story there. That means you going on other people's shows, such as their Facebook Lives, their podcasts, their YouTube shows, you doing collaborations with other creators, anything you can do to create content and get your message out there that is leveraging other people's audiences. That is PR in a nutshell, and you tapping into those industry leading places where your people go for information, where the people you're looking for are finding their information, where they're finding community. You have to go to those places and tell your story. And it's your job to create that list. Where are the places where my people are gathering? What are they reading? What are they listening to? What are they watching? Where do they spend their time? And then how do I become a voice in those places? And it might mean in some places you just organically start finding people and working with them one-on-one. But in a lot of cases, what it really means is you have to find out who the influencers are in your space and develop relationships with those people so that you can get permission to then interact within their platforms. So that's the PR side of it for me. The part three is the ads. And so if you're promoting your, discovery of your network, you can run ads to it, but I don't mean run an ad that says, join my community. What I mean is you create an ad that introduces people to you via something that helps them. And what that can be is something that it makes sense for your industry or field, something that your audience struggles with, that has challenges with, something that provides value. You create that thing in terms of a lead magnet, it's what they call it, something that is a valuable piece of digital information or a video or an email series, whatever it is. And you create that thing and you run ads against it saying, hey, people that I know are exactly the people that I want to discover my community. Here's the thing. I know that you're struggling with this or you need this, and I've created it and you can get it here. And I'm not saying that that's a copy. Obviously, that's terrible copy. What I'm saying is you have to be able to talk about the thing you've created in a way that gets them to want to use it and give you their information in exchange for the thing you've created. So create those lead magnets, create those offers. And via that, if you've done the right targeting and you use the right copy, the right messaging in your ad, you should be able to find the right people. And those people will be giving you their email addresses and hopefully scheduling calls with you to get to know you better. And as they find value in the things that you create and you give them pieces that help them and you give them resources that help them, and then you have their contact information, you can now start sending them more information that's useful, whether it's content that you've created in an email series or it's updates on what's going on with your shows or your other content. Those updates, that email communication, and in some cases text communication, if you have that, helps bring them into your world and helps nurture them. And along the way, those people can become enticed to join your community because you'll be mentioning it in that other content in the bottom of those emails or whatever else. And they want to be sucked into your world more. And all that starts with an ad, which for all the time people put into their social media organic stuff, maybe you're paying someone a few $100s to manage your social media. That same few $100s, instead of reaching a couple hundred people, could reach tens of thousands of people if you build the ads correctly. And that's a lot of people to be introduced into your world that are then giving you their information to nurture them and bring them into your community. So I think that it's a resource that a lot of people tap, but not as many as could. And a lot of you, I think, are thinking of how do you sell things right away? But if you build these ads in a way that builds your community and builds conversations, then you are, I think, building your community in a way that is sustainable, that is a customer base that can be sold to when they're ready, but they're not always ready. So don't run an ad for something you're selling only. Sometimes you need to bring people in that aren't going to be ready to buy your thing for the next few months and talk to them too. So that's the last piece of promotion. Promotion, I think it's always advertising and PR at the end of the day. So if you want to generate discovery for your personal brand, obviously you've got to find the right thing to say when you introduce yourself in all these different contexts and formats. You need to be better at putting yourself into the position to meet these people via networking and building relationships. And you need to be able to promote yourself to cold audiences, to strangers, by finding a way to give them something of value that's going to make them want to come into your world a little bit and at least make them curious about you. And if you can do those three things, you are on your way to building a discovery plan for your community that can work. And again, I've said this, when you have a community, you have a place where your people gather that you can engage with them. You can ask them what their problems are. You can solve them. And that is what's going to create the impact in your business that drives your personal brand. So community is huge. Everyone that's got a personal brand knows it, that if they can bring people around them that support them, that talk to each other, that talk to them as well, they have the right ingredients to take their personal brand forward. So I hope you guys enjoyed that today. I hope you guys are out there finding ways to get more people to discover your brand. Because if you are out there, you have a message, there is someone out there that needs it, and it's your job to put it in front of them so that you can help as many people as possible. So that's the discovery piece. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for listening again every week. I know your attention and time are valuable. I do not take it for granted. So thank you. And if you ever need something from me, obviously go to brandonbrands.com and let's find a way to connect with each other or work together. All right. And if you guys love this episode, please take a picture of it, snap a picture of it on your phone and share it to your social media channel. Share it on Instagram, tag me in it so that I can comment and say thank you. Tag me at Brandon Berkmeyer or at B Berkmeyer, and I will support you as well. So thank you and appreciate you guys listening, and I will catch you next time.
You've just taken your marketing knowledge to another level with this episode of Brands on Brands on Brands. But we have plenty more ways to not just help you build a business, but build a brand. Head over to brandonbrands.com for more resources, as well as access to our blogs, videos, and exclusive coaching sessions with your host. Be sure to visit brandonbrands.com.